Hi guys, welcome to Northwest Connection. My name's Troll.
And I'm Hanny, and today's guests are pushing the boundaries for creating a fusion of post-black metal, screamo and shoegaze. These guys have become a beacon in the scene, a band other bands look up to, not only drawing inspiration from their fearless approaches to the songwriting, but also how they stay their way through the industry too. Today we'll be talking to Hidden Mothers.
Hi guys, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I'm Luke. I sing and play guitar in Hidden Mothers.
And I'm Liam, and I shout and play bass in Hidden Mothers.
And usually a four-piece. That's correct?
We are.
Who are we missing?
Yeah.
Ari, who's our guitarist / tech wizard, and Adam, who is our drummer / board game expert. He's like a mystery man. He doesn't do interviews. I don't really even know why he just hates it. But Ari loves doing interviews, but tends to go off on a tangent and will tell you about the time he found a rugby ball on the beach in 1993 and it led into a certain album or something. So Luke and I tend to stay on the rails.
So how did Hidden Mothers come to be? Where did it all start?
Well, I mean, the band, we talked about this the other day because we were trying to trace the actual year we started because we couldn't work out what year it was. It was 2018, 2019. But basically, we were all, we used to be a five-piece, and our singer, Stefan, was kind of a barber for a few of us. And he talked about he wanted to start essentially a post-black metal band. And a few of us kind of just all people who knew Stefan, and so did Liam from, I don't even know how you knew.
Just from being in
you just kind of popped up.
Yeah.
And then obviously we kind of just all got together and we put out that EP that we did. And then, a few years on, obviously we've had the lineup change. We're a four-piece now. And obviously we've put out the album, and this is Hidden Mothers as it is. And this is Hidden Mothers right now, I guess.
Yeah, we kind of had quite a quick start. Got together in 2019, got rolling pretty quickly and played some shows, and then obviously lockdown stuff happened, so it kind of stopped us in our tracks a bit. But yeah, we've been rolling pretty hard since everything got back to normal, and we've been in a four-piece now for 18 months.
As long as we've recorded, since we recorded the album, just before we recorded the album.
So this is quite normal now, and this is Hidden Mothers going forward.
And how was that for you? Obviously, the EP that you first released came out during COVID, and that was how I first heard about Hidden Mothers, through a lot of the self-promotion through places like Twitter and X and what have you, and that was how I first come across you. But that must have been really difficult trying to start up, record, and then release your first EP in the middle of a global lockdown.
I think the release of the EP itself wasn't an issue. It was because people were stuck at home with nothing to do but listen to music. So we had almost a captive audience. The main issue was,
and we did record it before as well. It's important.
So recording it wasn't a problem either. We were sat on it for quite a while. But more than anything, it was not being able to do shows around it and and promote it and take it on the road and get it out there to people. So we released it in September 2020, but then we didn't play a gig until July 2021. So it was 10 months after the release before we were able to tour it. So it was a bit of a weird one. I'm glad that isn't something we'll hopefully have to deal with again.
And you're based in Sheffield, is that right? How do you find the scene over there? Or have you had to create your own scene?
It's got a really good scene for certain things. There's a really sort of burgeoning DIY emo scene in Sheffield. I sometimes feel like the metal scene maybe isn't quite as strong as some other northern cities. Although we do have some really good bands like Baal and Mouths, and there's a few others that are doing really cool stuff. But we've had just as warm a welcome in other cities as we have in our home city, which is quite nice. It's been nice to not only feel like we're supported by Sheffield, if that makes sense.
You're from Sheffield?
I think Well, that's what I was just about to say. I think the fact that we're not all from Sheffield as well has meant that there's been a lot of other cities that have been kind of semi-homes for us. Like Huddersfield, where Liam lives, is obviously a big one. Like our first show was at the Parish. Some of our favourite headline shows have been at the Parish at Huddersfield as well. And we're all kind of from different parts of the country. Like, I'm originally from Stoke-on-Trent. Ari's from Leicester, or at least some kind of little village somewhere near Leicester. That nobody knows the name of. I don't know the name of. I don't think he knows the name of. And Adam's from, again, like a little area in Norfolk. So we all just kind of converged onto Sheffield. I mean, you've never been based in Sheffield, have you, Liam?
No. All I know of Sheffield is our practice space and the various gig venues dotted around Sheffield, and one really, really good curry house. But otherwise, like, not all that familiar with Sheffield.
Yeah, priorities are in place there. Practice space, curry house.
Yes, and a couple of really good pubs.
It's all we do.
Yeah. So we'll start with Liam. But how did you get into the metal scene? Where did you start in music? Yeah,
sorry.
That's okay.
I mean, I started. I suppose I got into metal like everybody else did when I was around sort of 12, 13, 14. I'm nearly 40, so was like prime age for the like new metal boom of the early noughties, like late 90s, early noughties. So like Deftones and Korn and Slipknot and all that stuff. And I started going to local shows in Corby where I grew up, home of Raging Speedhorn. So we had quite a good metal scene around that time, a good alternative scene. And then I've just sort of always been in bands. I was in bands when I was at uni, and then I was in a band called Relics, which was the last one I did before Hidden Mothers started. So when we started Hidden Mothers, I almost kind of already knew what we needed to do and who we needed to speak to, and how things work. And this ain't my first rodeo, I suppose, but it's it's probably my most successful rodeo, but it's not my first one.
Was it a particular band that sparked it off for you, or?
It was probably I remember the first band that I ever, alternative quote unquote band that I ever listened to was The Offspring. But I think in terms of heavier, more extreme stuff, it was the Slipknot debut that I remember listening to and going, "This isn't music," and then being compelled to go back to it for some reason, and just carrying on from there. So yeah, I'd probably credit those two bands, and probably Poison the Well as well. That was my first side turn into things that were a little bit less mainstream. Yeah. As not that the Slipknot were mainstream at the time, but they are now, obviously. So yeah, those three bands, Offspring, then Slipknot, then Poison the Well, sent me in the direction that I ended up going.
And were you playing bass before you listened to that sort of music, or did that bring you to...
No. I did my work experience in a guitar shop when I was 14, and came away with a bass at the end of the week because I just kind of fallen in love with it a little bit, because they kind of didn't really want me to touch anything, so they hid me in the bass corner where nobody ever went. And and I just came away with a bass at the end of the week. So yeah, it was nice.
How about you, Luke?
Well, in terms of I guess my story's a bit different in the sense that I've always been kind of into metal, quite metal adjacent music for most of my life. I'd say Hidden Mothers was the first time I was in a metal band, so to speak. I got into music through hardcore and post-hardcore and emo and kind of stuff like that. That was kind of my in. And then I guess there was a point where I started to kind of veer towards bands like Oathbreaker and Death Heaven, because it was just a sound that I really liked. And then and then that was when I kind of ended up in the metal scene as we became in Hidden Mothers, I guess. So yeah, mine was less so. I feel like that's kind of a feature of our band, is that everybody has quite different tastes in music. And I have to say, Liam and Adam are probably the ones with the most metal credentials in terms of what they've always had as their tastes and stuff. Whereas me and Ari are always we were a little bit more different spaces, I think. Which is probably why we sound the way we do, partially. Yeah,
we've definitely all come into it from different directions, have we? And at different stages in our lives. I think something that shows sometimes is that there's an age split in our band. So Ari and I are nearly 40, and Luke and Adam are both like in their late 20s, like coming up for 30. So like when we talk about the bands that influenced us, obviously there's a 10-year gap there, and we've come in from very different paths. So, but it's definitely led to an interesting pool of influences overall, I
I
think.
think again, I mean, there's a 5 to 10 year age gap between you and Harry and me and Lee. So, you know, again, you've got the split.
Yeah.
I grew up as a 15-year-old, and I was 15 in 94, 95. So I had all those that sort of golden era of that sort of end of grunge and what have you, and like the start of the punk scene, which was great. But then, you know, we all get old.
Absolutely.
And when did you first pick up the guitar, Lee? What age did you start playing?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's about 14, maybe. Which, I mean, I always feel like it was ages ago, but I guess that is only about 16 years ago. So, I mean, how long have you been playing bass, Liam? What must be 30 years now, surely? No, because I thought you started playing when you were like 10 or something. You're nearly 40.
I started playing when I was 14. So it's been 26 years.
That wasn't even me trying to be funny. That was just me trying to genuinely say it probably has been about 30 years.
It's been 26 years, actually. And that's the thing. You said it must have been nearly 30 years. And in my head, I was immediately like, how dare you? And then I realized that you're not wrong.
I was going to say you.
One thing I can definitely say for sure is that I'm nowhere near as good as I should be for 26 years of learning.
Again, if we go into rounding up in school terms, then, you know, 26 years, you round up to 30 anyway, don't you?
It might as well be 30. Yeah. Oh, Christ.
Yeah.
How would you describe the Hidden Mother's sound to someone that's not heard you before?
What was the phrase you coined, Luke?
I've always described it as like metallic emo. Is that the one you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's emo with riffs and blast beats is we get weird comparisons. Like I think because people maybe aren't used to bands like us having Luke's kind of vocal involved, we get a lot of unusual comparisons. Like there was a podcast guy last week who said we reminded of him of Damien Rice, which I thought was like cool because like
it was lovely,
and like I love that O album of Damien Rice's, but like I just never would have thought to put that comparison in there. The funniest one we ever had was Armin Ra meets Lewis Capaldi, was just hilarious. Black and Snow Patrol is something that we've called ourselves a few times as well. But it's I guess it's just, you know, it's abrasive, heavy music, but it's always gonna have soul and emotion at the core of it. Like we don't ever want to do anything heavy for heaviness' sake. It's more about how the song feels and how it makes you feel is more important to us than anything else. Would you say that's fair, Luke?
Yeah, and I just don't think we're necessarily as founded in metal as maybe we intended to be from the get-go. I think we always intended, we were going to be like a metal band. We were going to be like a heavy band. And I think that just changed over time to the point where we just wanted to make something that sounds nice. And sometimes that's really heavy, sometimes that's not. So, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, metallic emo. If we have to give it 2 words, then that's as good as any.
I thought Black Snow Patrol was quite a good one. Though. That could be the next.
I want to put it on a t-shirt, but I'm not sure I can get it to everyone.
I don't know. You managed to get the Peep Show one out there, didn't you? Was it last year before the album release?
Yeah. No, it was just before the album release. Yeah, because it was the whole joke was that it was 4 years to get the album out.
As well, that shirt, didn't it? It sold well,
sorry?
If I remember.
Oh yeah. I wish we'd got more done. Yeah, because we did it kind of. We got 25 made, I think, thinking no one's going to buy this, and then it flew out. So yeah, more fool us. We should have done 50.
So going back to your music, how does a Hidden Mother's track start? Where does the concept start? Does it come with a guitar riff or lyrics first, or?
There's not necessarily one size fits all in terms of how we've done it. Because, like, I know if we're talking about the album itself, some of the tracks are literally things I've written on an acoustic guitar, and then I've said, I've got the vocals, I've got this, and I've got this, and I want to make a song out of it. Sometimes, like there's songs like The Grey, which was pretty much all Ari. I didn't really contribute anything. I mean, obviously, besides saying I like that, I don't like that, or maybe we should go more like this in the practice room. Ari pretty much built that one up from the ground up in terms of the riffs and stuff, I think. But generally, it's usually I come with an idea. It's usually a melody, or it's a vocal part, or a guitar part, or something, and then usually build from that. Which is probably why there's been that natural progression towards having a lot more clean vocals. I think because I've always kind of, I don't know, just been kind of a big contributor in terms of like starting ideas, and I always want to, I've all got this part that I've been singing and there's lyrics that I've written because. Yeah.
And the heavier parts just come naturally with that then after?
Yeah, I think it's like we never set I say never. We set out once with a very clear let's write something really heavy, which turned into Defanged, on the first song on the album. But other than that, it's usually we start with a very small idea, like Luke said, whether that's a guitar part or a vocal melody or whatever, and then just build it from there. And if it builds into something heavy, then great. And if it doesn't, then it wasn't meant to. Like when Luke came to us with Violet Sun, like it was literally just, 2 chords and the lyrics, wasn't it? And you had it pretty much fully written lyrically and vocally. And then we built it out from there. But I don't think we always know, like you didn't know that song was going to have the heavy parts that it has when you had that idea. It just sort of developed over time.
No, Violet Sun was a weird one because I'd written it. It was in an open tuning on an acoustic guitar, and I wrote it like pretty much in one sitting, and I really liked it. And I remember saying, "Do we want to use this?" Because I'm always kind of keeping some songs that I always end up thinking, "Oh, maybe one day I'll do an acoustic kind of something, or I'll do something with that." And that Violet Sun was just kind of one of them tracks. It was just kind of like it was this acoustic idea that I really liked. It was 3 chords and an open tune. It was all finger picking. And then we kind of decided, oh, well, the finger picking and acoustic guitar part thing we can leave, but we love the melody and we love the lyrics and everything and the feel of the track. So we built around it. Because I know when we were writing that, I was quite resistant at first because it's pretty much sticks on one chord for quite a big chunk of the song and kind of builds up that tension. And I wasn't necessarily, because I never envisioned the song like that. But it turned out really cool, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. But kind of gives an idea of kind of how we write things, because obviously it's not always
there's no one
the way you think it's going to happen. Yeah, there's no one path. I mean, if we'd have based that song off the original one I'd written, it probably would have ended up, I don't know, more of a soft ballad than it would have, do you know what I mean? Then it would have been like a heavy kind of emotional.
Does that mean your songs are finished before you go into the studio to record, or are you still sort of working on them when you go in?
They're
pretty much.
They might get tweaked, because there's sometimes when you write a song in a practice room, you're always just hearing it in full, and it's only when you go into the studio and you start laying it down sort of layer by layer where you're like, oh, actually that sticks out a bit like a sore thumb and doesn't really work. Can we try and tweak a bit? And so small changes get made in the studio, but the vast majority of structural stuff is done by the time we get in there.
You recorded this with Joe Clayton at No Studios as well, didn't you? How was he in the new recording process for you? He is quite synonymous within the scene, isn't he?
Yeah, he's really good at like giving you little nudges in directions you didn't know you needed nudges in. Like Defanged was the biggest one that he kind of suggested we make changes to, wasn't it?
Yeah, because there's the chorus part at the end that I sing, which originally when we wrote that song, it was going to be just heavy from start to finish, and we were just kind of like, it's going to be screaming all the way through. Leah will do most of the screaming, I'll do a little bit as it is on the record, and that was just kind of how we envisioned it. And then you got in and started doing the chorus, and obviously it sounded cool, it sounded great, but then Joe kind of just said, didn't he? He was like, this song's become a bit one-dimensional, and it's kind of just a bit riff salad and kind of a whole load of screaming vocals, and it's not really flowing. So he suggested to me, if you thought about maybe singing it, and I was like, no, I don't even know what I would do. And then I went in, I was just like, right, well, I'll try something, and then I sang it, and then for the first time, and then it was just like, right, cool, that's what we're doing. It was weird actually because that maybe I don't know. I mean, I'm happy with the way it turned out, but I maybe could have thought that through a lot more. I literally just came up with that vocal melody. I was just kind of like, right, cool, I'll go try something. I sang it, and then okay, that's going on the record now. So
it was funny because we had 2 days of vocals booked in, and Adam, our drummer, couldn't make the second day. But we were like, well, don't worry, we won't make any drastic changes to anything. And then we made a really, really drastic change, like the first opportunity we had. But I think we're all definitely agreed that it was the right thing to do, and saved my voice a little bit live as well when you come in and do that bit. So yeah, it's good.
So with your vocals are quite harsh, Liam. Is there some? Do you do specific things to look after your voice, or I suppose that goes for you as well?
Well, yeah, we both like do a lot of warm-ups. Like our voices are very different. Like Luke's quite a bit of a higher register than mine. So I try and do his warm-ups, but can't always get all the way to the top of what he would be doing. And we always have like honey and throat lozenges and lemon tea and all that kind of stuff on with us on tour. It's been a bit of a learning curve because, like, obviously, before we were a 4-piece, I was, just the bass player. Not that isn't a worthwhile job, but that is, what my job was, and I did a little bit of backing vocals, and that was it. So I've never done loads of vocals in a band, so it was a bit of a learning curve in terms of learning how to do it in a sustainable way and not going too hard on night one of the tour and losing my voice like I did when we went out with Cops last year. So yeah, I've definitely got better at, being sensible and looking after myself a bit more. Not that I'm still not pretty fucked by the end of like a 3 or 4 day run, but not on night one anymore. So that's fine. It's progress.
How about you, Luke?
I don't know. I don't think so. No, I was just like the same. So I mean, I kind of had the opposite experience of Liam in the sense that it was almost a learning curve for me because it's the first band I'd just been a solely guitarist in when I first joined. I'd only ever been a vocalist. Vocalist and playing the guitar, but I'd always been in 4-piece bands as a guitarist singer. So it was always kind of a bit strange for me to kind of take a step back and kind of just focus on playing the guitar. So it's been kind of nice to when there seemed to be more space in our music to have clean vocals, that I started to do that a little bit more because I've always been the singer in like emo bands, post-hardcore bands, and that's kind of the thing that I've always done. So I guess it's more normal for me having to sing, whereas I guess it was more new for you, wasn't it, Liam, getting kind of used to doing vocals and stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Like you're pretty seasoned at this point, and you know what you're doing, and you know what your voice is meant to feel like and what it's not meant to feel like. Whereas I wasn't always sure how hard I was meant to push myself until I'd gone too far, and I was like, "Oh, it's done now." So yeah, it's been a learning curve. Luke's been really helpful in terms of keeping me in line and not being too loud. And yeah, I think we've got a good balance struck at the minute.
Did you ever think about getting another vocalist in after Steph left as well, or was it always just to carry on as a 4-piece?
I think we had the conversation, but it never felt like it went on for very long. Like, because as we'd, I knew I could do a bit of screaming because I'd always done a bit of backing vocals and stuff in bands, and I think we just didn't really know, like, is there anything that we would want from a vocalist that we couldn't do between the remaining members? And when we realized that the answer to that was no, not really, like it didn't seem worth searching for somebody when we already had the skills within the band.
Setting that dynamic as well between the 4 of us.
I think it was just the way the music had moved as well, because I've never actually tallied it up, but it always feels to me when I listen back to the record, like it does feel like almost majority of it is clean vocals, or just slightly, it's nearly 50-50, maybe slightly more clean, slightly more screaming. But that was kind of already happening, a long time before we became a 4-piece as well. It was always we were always moving towards more clean vocals, weren't we? So just because it was just the way we were writing, and because we were kind of writing we were adding in, more parts of clean vocals and more melody into our music, whereas maybe we were a bit more kind of straight up kind of metal band before. So
I think as well is that if we had brought in another vocalist because of the reasons that Luke's just said, there would have been big chunks of them having nothing to do effectively. Whereas, for me, I'm a bass player first and a vocalist second. So as we write going forwards, there's the flexibility for us to write a song that has no screaming in it whatsoever, and that's fine because I've still got a job within the band. Whereas if we'd have done that previously, it would have kind of put a member out effectively for a song, which and it also leaves us open to do an instrumental song like we did Kate and Green on the record, and if we ever want to play that live, we're all still involved, and we're not putting someone out, and so it just works. The dynamic just works, doesn't it? Like, I don't think since we made the shift, not once have we ever thought, oh, I don't know if this was the right thing to do.
Cool. So do you have specific roles within the band beyond your instruments? There's someone that sorts social media, someone that does gigs, etc.
Yes, I do have all those things. Yes.
I think, is it time to talk about the way that I've envisioned it in the past as almost being like the when you play an RPG game and you have the different classes. That's how I see our band.
I think I like your analogy, but I think it sells Adam short slightly, because he's basically.
Do you think?
Yeah, because he's basically left as like the brute.
The muscle.
Like he drives and he lifts things. But no, so, I mean, yeah, I do like social media. I do our booking. I organize everything basically. Merch and releases and announcements and whatever else we need to do. Luke is our creative powerhouse. The vast majority of the song ideas come from him. Ari is the tech guy. He's like the guy in the chair. He's got, he understands what we need to do to sort of elevate our sound, and he's the one who's encouraged us to embrace technology a little bit more. We use in-ear monitoring and stuff live now, and he pushed really hard for that because he knew that it would add another dimension to what we do. And Luke and I were both not resistant, but like skeptical, weren't we, about that, about whether it was the right thing for us. But he was like, trust me, and he was right. I couldn't imagine not doing it now. This is where your analogy, it always makes me a bit uncomfortable, because I always feel like I say, Adam plays the drums and he drives things. He drives a lot, but he contributes more than he would probably ever admit to as well. And he's a really interesting player, and is always the one, I think, that takes the song in a direction you didn't expect it to go. So yeah, he's like, I feel like he's the tweaker more than anything else. When we're writing, it's like he'll do a beat over a riff that none of us would have ever imagined, because we just haven't got that sort of brain.
But I also don't think it's unfair to say that, like, he's an absolute beast when it comes to driving, and like if we go on tour, he's just like a machine
behind the wheel for 4 hours.
He can just sit behind he could drive for 25 hours straight and still be fine. He's like he is the muscle behind the band when it comes to, if you've got to move a cab, big lad Adam comes out with the muscles and moves the cab.
Yeah, whenever I'm like, I'll wait for one of the other guys to help me with this cab, and then I turn around and Adam's just got it on his head with one hand, and he's just carrying it up a flight of stairs. So like, all right, fair enough.
But it's also an amazing drummer as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So going to your live performances, what's been your favourite gig so far that you've done? Individual.
It's probably ArcTanGent. It's like, whenever I get asked this question, ArcTanGent is always the first one that comes to mind. Not even so much because of how much fun it was or how well we think it went, because obviously it was fun and it did go well. But more than anything, it felt like an acknowledgement that we were ready for that step up to that sort of stage. The scene, it works in tiers effectively. The music scene, you start at the bottom and you play shitty little venues to no one, and then you play shitty little venues to some people, and then you play slightly nicer venues to no one, and it goes up from there. And it felt like we got to the outdoor festival stage fairly quickly, and it's really lovely to have been embraced by that festival and the people around it. So that it holds a special place for me, especially like that
So,
one. There's definitely been we've had more good ones than bad ones.
I was going to say, is that the first performance which is sticking out more than last year's for you at ArcTanGent?
I think last year's more so, like the more recent one more so, because the fact that we were invited back for the pre-show, like, you know, to get invited once is them taking a punt on you. To get invited twice is them saying, we're invested, you know, we support this band and we want you to do well. And so that felt amazing to do last year.
And obviously now you've got the double bubble with the 2000 tree slot as well.
Yeah, that's going to be nuts. Can't wait.
What's been your favourite show, Luke? Is that ArcTanGent as well?
No, I think ArcTanGent was amazing, and you know, it was like a massive kind of life goal was to play like a big festival like ArcTanGent or 2000 Trees, and I never thought it would have happened as soon as it would in the band when we first played it, especially. But I would say, I think we've done some really special shows over the last year and a half since the album and all the singles started coming out. When we were doing headline shows. And when, for the first kind of time, we ever felt like we were playing shows and, oh, wow, we're playing in cities where none of us have any connections to. Yeah. People actually coming out to see us. Like when we played, I can't remember if it wasn't this year, maybe it was one of our first headline tours after we started releasing singles. Didn't we play Camden? Was that right?
We played, so Camden.
Or was that before we'd released any singles?
Before we'd released anything, yeah, but we sold out the Black Heart in London.
And that just felt mental, and like similarly, this like when we played, obviously it was a really small venue, great venue, like little buildings in Newcastle, and like just playing that, and it just being full of people who've obviously, you know, not, you know, a lot of, you know, were there for us, and that just felt really cool. Seeing people singing along for the first time and stuff like that, like that's just never really happened until recently because we've got more music out and because I guess there's just more people who've paid attention than maybe they would have done when we just had an EP and. You know, so I think some of the most recent shows have felt very special for that reason because it just feels like, I don't know, it's cliche, but almost feels like we're doing it for real now a little bit. People coming to see our band, people listen. And playing festivals is great. Obviously, not everybody at the festival knows us, which is awesome because they can hear us for the first time, a lot of people. But it's also great just to see, oh, wow, there's actually, you know, say 90, 100 people in this room who want to listen to this.
To us specifically, like they're here because we're here. Yeah. The tour with Nylon was like a really good run for that of just like genuine support and feeling like there's a real distinction, I think, that when you start out as a band, most of the people who come and see you are your mates and people you know, and there comes a point where you stop mostly playing to your friends and you start playing to like actual fans, and that is quite a strange, you know, experience. But yeah, I definitely echo like that London show last year, the Newcastle and Liverpool shows and the Huddersfield show as well, actually on the Nylon tour. Yeah, we've had some really good, like the last couple of weeks. We did Glasgow, that was awesome. Like that, we were expecting not great in Glasgow because it clashed with a couple of really big events, and then on the night it was heaving. And it's been a while since we've had a proper dud. Like, I could probably count the duds we've had on one hand.
Incredible. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's all you can ask for, really, isn't it?
Sorry.
What was that? Sorry, I think you gravel a bit there. Sorry. Yeah.
Philippines.
You can take this one, Liam, because I probably think more of disasters than you do, but you're a bit more positive than me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have. So we played last year. We played Bastard Fest with in Sheffield. So it was Empire State Bastard, which is obviously Simon from Biffy Clyro, Mike from Ocean Size, and Dave from Slayer. So like it was like a big deal. There was us and Harriet and Pupil Slicer and Conjurer on this support bill with Empire State Bastard. So it was like a huge platform for us and a huge opportunity to, you know, do a real big profile show with some cool bands and musicians. And partway through the set, Ari's pedal board just died effectively. Well, it just nothing was coming out of it. So we were just stood on the stage for what felt like forever. It was only about 10 minutes, I think. But just like when you don't really know what's happening, it's hard to set expectations with the crowd, or like, oh, we're just having a technical issue, we'll be back soon. We don't know how long that is, and you start to panic. And it turns out that all he'd done was knock the volume knob on one of his pedals down. Because Ari's pedal board has about 800 pedals on it, so when one of them goes wrong, trying to figure out which one it is like a needle in a haystack.
He also it's so dependent. He's so not in a. They don't mean this in a negative way, but he uses pedals so well, so he's very dependent on them in terms of, I said to him on stage, because if that happened to me, because I'm mainly just kind of playing some scratchy kind of crunchy chords or doing a bit of finger picking, I thought, I'd just plug into the amp and I'd just finish the set. But he was like, I can't. Like, there's things they do with the guitar that whole parts also, they need the pedals to sound the way that they do. So it was kind of like, it was just such a panic, wasn't it? It was very strange.
Yeah. So that was a weird one. And then we had at Strange Forms a couple of months ago, there was something going on with the patching of our equipment that we basically put the whole festival back by about half an hour, 40 minutes. But which was, I was so like paranoid, thinking everyone's going to hate us. They're all going to turn on us because we've ruined everyone's day. The headliner's going on 30, 40 minutes later than they're supposed to. They're going to be annoyed. And then we played the set and everybody was like, these things happen, don't worry about it. And the headliner had what they said was one of the best sets they've ever done in their entire lives, and everybody stuck around for it. So in the end, it was nothing to worry about, but in the moment, it feels like a disaster. But it's fine now. We've not made any enemies with any of our disasters, so that's all good.
Now, our last podcast, we had Pleiades on, and they said that Hidden Mothers were like a beacon within the scene, within the metal scene. They really looked up to you. Can you give us the names of some bands that we should be looking out for?
Oh, so you guys came to our Liverpool show, right? Yeah. So you're already familiar with Nylon, really great Sheffield hardcore bands. Who else have we played with recently that's been really good? Whenever anybody asks these questions, my mind just always goes. If you asked me off camera, and I'd have 100 bands ready to go, but ask me on camera, and it's gone now. So who have we played with recently? Below the Neck, from up in Aberdeen, we played with them a couple of weeks ago in Manchester, and they were absolutely fantastic.
Are they not from Inverness?
Inverness, you're right, not Aberdeen. You're right.
I think so. Yeah.
In fact, actually, should shout out Lure In from Manchester, but specifically Cam from Lure In, because he is really keeping Manchester DIY alive pretty much by himself at the minute. He's like a one-man scene machine out there, and he put on this all-dayer just for us, just so that we could have somewhere to play on the way back from Glasgow, and pulled in Slimo and Vicarage and Cairns and just loads of great bands from around the UK to do this all day, purely built around us, just for our convenience, because he's a nice bloke and that's just the sort of thing he does for people. So yeah, massive shout out to Lure In, but also to all the bands he put on that show, because it was fantastic.
There's definitely that thing within the metal scene where everyone seems to be helping each other out rather than for themselves. There's that that camaraderie.
I think it's a weird one, because the metal scene can still be quite cliquey, and then there are elements of it where that doesn't happen, but then there are enough people where it does happen that you remember why you want to be part of that community in the first place. Because we're very much because we came up in emo and punk and hardcore bands, community is right at the forefront of what we want to do. And I don't necessarily think that exists in all of metal's corners, but it exists in the ones that we want to be involved in. So it's a really strong scene at the minute in the UK, and lots of good bands made up of really good people who look out for each other, and it's nice time to be doing it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that you're right. There's so many good bands out there in the UK scene at the moment, and decent guys as well. From going out to gigs, you see and speak to the guys, and it does seem to be quite a tight knit community. They say people want to be.
I think more than anything, what I like at the minute is how
Yeah,
varied it is. Because when I was in bands 15 years ago, there was like, bands either sounded like Under Oath or they sounded like the Black Dahlia Murder, and that was pretty much those were your options. And then and there was Enter Shikari doing their thing off to the side. But like now, if you look at something like Noise Fest that we played a couple of months ago, where there's like us doing our post-hardcore thing, there's Klops doing their like post-black metal, Mastiff doing like sludge, and then there's like Love Rarely doing techie, poppy, post-hardcore, and Orchard and Knife Bride, and such a variety of bands that are somehow all part of the same scene. It's a really interesting mix at the minute, and I'd take that over like a scene saturated by one thing any day of the week.
Yeah, it's like when we saw you in Liverpool. The three bands were totally different, but it worked out for a really good night.
yeah.
Didn't it? Just,
We missed the first band as well because I was still in the pub. But yeah, I mean, seeing play of these, obviously then Nylon as well. I'd never really listened to them before the show, and then they were absolutely fantastic, and obviously headlined by yourselves as well. It was a really good night of different music.
Just more interesting, isn't it? Like you feel like it's been sort of you've been part of something when you see three totally different bands come together and do something really cool rather than three bands all doing a variation on the same thing. I just think it's makes for a much better
yeah,
night
the
out.
crowd loved it. Totally loved it.
Nylon were like, the reason we took them out was because we didn't want to take someone who just sounded a bit like we do, and but like we wanted a band who had the same sort of vibes and values and approach as us, but not necessarily the same sound. And Nylon definitely fit the bill.
Yeah, they were really good. That old school hardcore vibe was really great. What they were giving off as well.
Yeah, maybe we should start doing a Crowback.
It was a good moment. I'll give it that one.
Have you got a current song that's on repeat that you're listening to?
I've been hammering the new Calloused Cowboys album, and there's a song on the Calloused Cowboys album. I think it's called Two-Headed Trout or something like that. That has a chorus hook that Justin Timberlake would be proud of, amongst like the mathcore sort of chaos of it all. So yeah, that's been lodged in my head for however long it's been since that came out. So I'll say that.
I've been enjoying that album, especially the shout out to Bjork in the last track as well, where the Bjork song as well.
Yeah, when he started doing that on the album, I was like, this is so familiar, but I can't figure out what it is. And then I realized it was a Bjork thing. Yeah,
it was exactly the same.
Yeah, very cool. Like not many bands could reference Bjork and the Dillinger Escape Plan and Fall Out Boy on one album and make it work. But what a band!
Yeah, definitely.
We've got some fun questions for you now. So, if you could only listen to one album for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I would say, I'm trying to remember what the album's called now. It sounds really bad that I can't remember what it's bloody called. The Explosions in the Sky album with all the writing on with First Breath After Coma on, but that's not what it's called. The Earth is Not a Cold Dead Place, that's it. I just think that's just such a nostalgic album. That was kind of the album that got me into kind of things that were just different, I think. Like just things that were just left of field. That was like the first thing I'd heard that was like, oh, I'd never heard anything like this before.
How about you, Liam?
Good answer. Strong answer. Probably White Pony by Deftones, just because it does a little bit of everything. And I feel like there would be a song on there for any mood I could possibly find myself in, including all of the horniness that comes with any Deftones album. But yeah, so White Pony would be my Desert Island record, yeah, for sure.
If you went on a world tour, what country would you be most excited to visit?
Ooh. Maybe Japan.
Every time.
Every time.
Yeah. What about you, Lee?
I would have said the US because I just feel like for a lot of our influences and a lot of the kind of music we listen to, it's kind of the home of that kind of music, isn't it? So it's kind of like, I don't know.
You want to go
To
on a
play,
tour of the Midwest
yeah.
and find out where all that finger picking and tapping came from?
Exactly, yeah.
What 3 songs do you always come back to?
3 songs, what, from
Yeah.
anyone?
The 3 songs that just stick out that you always put on.
Passenger by Deftones, the one with Maynard James Keenan on it, because I just feel like that is like my favorite combination of like I think it's my favorite guest vocal appearance on anything ever. One Arm Scissor by At the Drive-In is like a big party song for me and just reminds me of my friends and like growing up and getting into music and going to shows. And then maybe something a bit less aggro. We Close Our Eyes by Go West is an absolute. That's the sassiest keyboard line ever written, and I would hate to never hear it again. So yeah, let's go with that as number 3.
Actually, have you seen that One Arm Scissor on YouTube on Jules Holland? And there's guitars.
Yeah, they basically don't play the song; they just throw the guitars around and do the vocals. It's a mess, but it's great.
Yeah. How about you, Luke?
So probably Villa del Refugio by This Will Destroy You. It's just my favourite This Will Destroy You song. Just the most chill song that's ever been made, but also there's just something very intense about it as well. Probably Beggars by Thrice. It's my favourite Thrice song. I've always loved that song. I love that whole album. Just really kind of soulful, kind of bluesy, post-hardcore. And then I don't know what the other one would be. Probably something acoustic, like something like, remember my wedding song, City in Colour, We Found Each Other in the Dark. That's a beautiful song. I like that.
Get you out.
I thought you would go. I thought you'd go to your vocal warm-up song, which is that Daniel Bedingfield song. It's a fucking great song. It's one. I love hearing you sing it. I think we should cover it.
Yeah, it'd be a fun cover, yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to.
Oh, actually, no, I've missed out one really important song, a song I couldn't stop listening to for months on ending. You Were the Same, Liam. I can't believe neither of us mentioned it. Ethel Cain, House in Nebraska. What a song.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
How long you can just, like 8 minutes of basically 2 chords, and it's the most mesmerizing thing you'll ever hear in your life. Yeah, incredible song.
Just a couple of quick fire questions for you now. Vinyl or streaming?
Streaming. As much as I know that's not the right answer, vinyl is a very expensive hobby that I simply can't afford. And but buy our record.
How about you, Luke?
I do like vinyl, so I'd probably say vinyl. I just similarly can't afford to own as much vinyl as I would want to be able to listen to all the music I want to. So streaming is a necessary evil, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately. It is. Night gigs or daytime festivals?
Daytime festivals.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw a spanner in the works and say Sunday matinees. Honestly, is a game changer. Is that being done by 8:30, 9 o'clock is the way forward.
I think Pleiades said the same thing.
It's the middle of the dream.
We've done a couple of matinees and had Pleiades play them, and I know that every time they've been like, why don't we do this all the time? So, yeah, it's a great feeling.
Iced coffee or hot coffee?
Liam hates all coffee, so...
Next question.
But I love coffee, so I'd say hot coffee.
Harry Potter or Star Wars?
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings is the right answer, yeah. Star Wars. Absolutely fucked it.
100%.
Maybe we'll drop that question. All right, now final question. Mystery meat milkshake or a meat feast pizza with a toothpaste sauce?
Just so I heard you right, you say mystery meat milkshake. or meat feast pizza with a toothpaste
Yeah.
sauce. I'm gonna have to go for the mystery meat milkshake because I feel like it's basically just a cold soup. And the other one,
I've had a bacon milkshake before, and it's actually really
yeah,
nice. I know it's not bacon, but
don't-
if it works for bacon, it can work for
I
anything
don't
else.
want toothpaste on my pizza. That's psychotic. So yeah, we'll go with the first one.
We went on tour last year, and Harry brought chocolate toothpaste on tour, and I was like, "You're 40 years old, and you're like
This time,
using chocolate toothpaste."
the tour that we did this time, he had mango toothpaste. I think he refuses to use. He's just such a fucking contrarian.
That's the things that, like, I mean, you've got kids, I don't, but isn't that the things you use to get your kids to brush their teeth?
I don't think it is. No, I think he just likes to be different. I think he's got a point because he said like the only reason your teeth don't feel clean is because you've been conditioned by Big Mint that mintiness equals cleanliness, and I think he might be right, but it doesn't change the fact that it feels so wrong to brush your teeth with mango.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be starting anytime soon. Really, I think I'll stick with the Colgate and the Listerine.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for being on Guinea Pigs online.
No, thank you.
Thanks,
Just before we sign off, is there anything you want to promote? Anything that you got going on soon?
When is this coming out?
It'll be next Monday.
Okay. So we're sat on something that I won't say because I don't know exactly when we're allowed to tell people, but I will just say keep an eye on our socials and stuff because there is a big announcement coming quite soon. Other than that, come and see us at 2000 Trees. Come and see us in Reading in July, in Leeds in August, and we'll have more shows coming later in the year.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.